Hello everyone, hopefully you're currently hearing me. We had some minor audio issues that I wanted to make sure were working before we went live. It seems like I'm coming through loud and clear, so welcome back to Hammering It Out for episode 3. We'll be joined a little bit later by Calego, who's the not a lead developer. He is first among equals. Yeah, that's the one. For the League of Extraordinary Foundry Virtual Tabletop Developers, whose name I will be petitioning to change very soon. You may know me as Anathema or Nath from the Foundry Discord. I am the project... Nope. It's always hard to remember my official title, Cody. I do so many things. Cody, what do you do again?
Hi, I'm Cody. I'm a developer here. I help reach out to the development community. One of your titles is Cody Wrangler, isn't it? I thought that was on the paperwork.
I didn't agree to that. I'm the project coordinator, Anathema, or Nath, ladies and gentlemen, if you're trying to put the name to the face. I basically do all the things in the background that I can find. Thank you for the compliments on the vest, chat. It's just how I dress, and Cody likes to emulate me where possible.
Nath is really my role model. Welcome to Hammering Out. This is our night show style talk show where every month we bring on wonderful guests and talk about Foundry. Nath, why don't we kick off with some cool things in Foundry?
Cool things in Foundry from the last month. I actually, this was a last minute one that I didn't get a chance to throw Matt a heads up on, but I saw a great subreddit post earlier today where someone has actually automated a Minesweeper puzzle for their D&D game.
I saw that.
It looks awesome. Just genius. So you guys should go to the subreddit and check that out. What do you got, Cody?
Similarly, I saw someone post a work in progress of a table that they're building that has a TV embedded, and they're using the various material plane modules and such like that. So you can actually just touch the screen and select your tokens and things like that. And it was just super cool. And I definitely want to build one, even though I don't have anyone to play in person with.
Nice. I also saw we actually had a great module submitted yesterday. I did approval for, which is a Ouija board using Sequencer, which I thought was really, really neat. Just, there are things that occasionally get submitted to the package approval system where whenever we get to look at it, it's just like, I see how you had the idea to do this, but I am amazed that you actually carried it off. There's so many just crazy module implementations out there that it's just astounding to me.
Yeah, the reason I came to Foundry in the first place was wanted to extend it. I want to, make some cool stuff. I want to automate my stuff and make weird stuff, and we continuously see people do that kind of thing and make awesome stuff. Speaking of modules, we're already approaching the end of the 08X cycle. It's been a long ride. I know a lot of people haven't updated yet, but 67% of systems are ready for 08X. That means 88% of worlds, based on usage of those systems, are ready to go. That's come up a lot over the past month or two, thanks to everyone who's been doing that. And 71% of modules are also marked compatible, which is just a huge amount of effort that's happened to get there. I love how everyone came together to get through a pretty big refactor to get there.
Yeah, it was kind of, it's one of those things where 08 focused on a very important overhaul of the API and just kind of standardization, and that's great. And it's certainly every developer I've spoken to who's actually adjusted to using the 08 API instead of the 07 one has had praise for it. The changes have been hugely beneficial, and having things standardized across all kinds of different workflows does open a lot up for developers that they previously kind of had to have hacky solutions for instead. So, I mean, it's fantastic to have that, but at the same time, it does require a bit more effort when there's a massive overhaul like that compared to, like, just introducing a new feature.
Yeah, I've certainly had to reach for the API docs less often now that everything's under the same document umbrella. Before, some things were over here and some things were over there. That's kind of a shame because Atro just reworked the API docs to just look gorgeous and be better organized, and they use the Foundry styling and such. It's just, I kind of want to just look at the documentation just because it looks good now.
Yeah, I've never been real great at reading the API docs. Usually I have 1 to 6 DMs open with various developers, including yourself, while I scream at JavaScript to try and get it to do what I want. But I've been finding as I work to refactor my own system for eventual release that when I get into a new section, like I was just reworking the combat tracker for my system, being able to guess what API I need to use based on what I've just used for, say, actors that I'm already familiar with certainly helped me deal with something that would have taken me weeks to try and figure out. It has been much easier rebuilding my system than I've ever expected.
And certainly those changes didn't help out just system and module developers. It's been helping out the core development as well. Between the new simplified like internal structure for everything and the fact we're now up to 3 developers, Foundry is moving faster than ever before. As part of that, we have shifted how we are doing our releasing and versioning. You want to talk a bit about how that's looking, Nath?
Yeah, so as you know, we've had multiple behind the scenes meetings trying to determine the best way forward for, keeping communication with our community developers, improving that communication, and also providing enough avenues for feedback from both the general user base as well as our community devs. So being able to kind of investigate opportunities that we could extend our approach to development has been really just, it's been a long haul, but I think we're going to end up the better for it. So as we approach reversioning and, moving to renaming how Foundry's versioned, we've also been thinking a lot more about what our internal development process actually entails. Because, it isn't like we didn't have the phases that everyone's seeing on their screens right now. It isn't like we didn't have those delineated before, but we kind of we did them, and we didn't necessarily need to communicate with the community what we were doing, because it was just an internal process. So as we move forward and as we, work to make this a little bit more standardized, and as we think a lot about, the best way to provide that information to developers, we've been kind of widening out our phases. So we'd like to have 3 to 4 new released versions yearly. And that's an ambitious kind of concept to hold on to when a lot of major softwares tend to focus on 1 to 2 major versions yearly tops.
Yeah, it's certainly an ambitious goal, but I think we can do it.
So I kind of look back on how the development for 07 went and all the factors that contributed to delays in 07 and 08 and why it took as long as it did for, those releases. Because I'm not going to say that it was an exceedingly long time. I think a single developer producing 2 versions over the course of a year is absolutely acceptable, and in fact kind of astounding when you think about it. You have development teams that are like 300, 400 people large that produce 1 to 2 versions a year. So having an individual developer, a sole developer, do that is kind of crazy. But now that we have 3 devs working on the actual client and the software, the core software, I think it's not too ambitious to consider doing smaller releases that are a little more rapid and focus getting, 3 to 4 new major versions out yearly. And, this allows us to do a few other things as well. So we previously had this alpha beta stable cycle that we'd go through, but often that led to some lack of clarity for developers to know when was the time they should update their modules. And, we know that at a company level, Foundry is helped greatly by the work of awesome community developers. So we want to do everything we can to make sure that we're helping them keep doing what they're doing, which means more communication. It means more opportunities for them to, give us feedback on our development process. So if we're going to do that, we want to kind of widen out the development phase. So those of you currently looking at the screen, we previously used to go alpha, beta, stable. Now we are looking more towards a prototype, development, testing, and then stable approach, with the prototype and development phases being focused primarily for developers, community developers, to give us feedback. By front-loading all of our changes, our major changes to the software into those phases, it gives the developers kind of a prolonged period to provide us changes they'd like to see in the software, as opposed to us getting reports during the beta phase a week before it goes stable that something changed in the API that a developer didn't get a chance to see during alpha and beta. So now we have to make a choice on whether or not we want to change it to support them a week before we launch the stable version of the software.
And working with those developers is a lot of the reason that we're, it's a lot of what Calego provides us and a lot of what my job is, and it's what the league is there to help us do. So I'm excited to talk a bit more about that with him later. So let's not get into too many specifics, but, it's super exciting. We're going to do things like, V9 Prototype 1, that does mean we won't never be, Foundry 1.0.0. But, I think this is something that's going to formalize what we've already been doing and help every user and developer and Foundry itself. Speaking of, go ahead.
Absolutely. And I just really want to get it across that one of the reasons we're changing and making more clear our development phases, it's not just for community developers, though it does certainly take into account, their approach and their development. It's also for users. One of the things that we heard throughout 08 was the average user didn't get a chance to didn't know when to provide feedback because the beta phase seemed like it was focused for developers only and stuff wasn't updated, so they weren't sure if they should test or when they should test or when should they advance their world to the new version, etc. So providing a very clearly delineated way for everyone to get their feedback in gives us the opportunity to develop around that feedback better.
And we're already hard at work at the next version. Version 9 Prototype 1 is well underway. Atro's been very excited about working on things like lighting and rendering. He even ran a recent one shot in the early V9. That was Demon Queen's Awaken, a one shot that turned into three shots, as it does. Our very own Calego was one of the players.
Yeah, let's before we talk Demon Queen for a little bit, let's talk a little bit about V9 and the prototype. We'll have Demon Queen kind of sit in the background here for a moment, but basically the V9 prototype that is currently in the pipeline, we're expecting that when, like, a month ish, less than.
Yeah. I think most of what's stopping us from releasing it is that we still have to do all of the changes necessary to support our new release platform. But otherwise, like the adaptive lighting, some improvements for databases and canvases, those are all ready to go.
And the stuff that Andrew's been sharing internally about, the performance improvements with regard to lighting and rendering, it's one of those things that it's kind of, if you know what he's talking about, I think it's really great. I can only look at the timings that he's posting for, like, this is what it used to take to render lighting and vision for this scene with 5,000 walls in 07, 08, and now V9, and it's getting decreasingly smaller. The rendering times on canvas and lighting, I still don't really understand any of it or how he does it. It's one of those math things, I think.
I think he's just, I don't know. Maybe there's some DLSS there. Maybe there's some, RTX processing. I can't imagine how else he's getting these performance improvements time over time.
You mean in his brain, right? Not on the canvas.
Yeah. Of course. RTX. Atro definitely has RTX in his brain.
Yeah, I'd firmly believe that. But yeah, seeing the changes as he works on them for V9, super impressive, and I'm really looking forward to when the community starts actually getting to see it and play with it, because we can show people all we want on live streams, but it's never going to get the point across until someone actually gets to pick it up and play with it. So, speaking of, you mentioned he actually ran the last episode of Demon Queen Awakens. Those of you out there who may not be familiar, there's a live stream. It's both on our YouTube and in the VODs on this Twitch channel, with Demon Queen Awakens, a one-shot adventure that he ran for a number of people, including Ian from Tabletop. What is it, Ian? Tabletop RPG Music?
Yeah,
I think
that sounds right.
Andrew or Calego from the League of Foundry Extraordinary Foundry Virtual Tabletop Developers. Cody, I'm going to stab you over that name, I swear.
Take a drink.
And Amy from Sigil was another participant, as well as our very own moderator, Nork. Is that everyone? I feel like there was one more person.
And of course, Andrew as GM.
Oh, right. Yeah. And Matt.
Oh, yeah, Matt.
Matt representing the Foundry VTT staff.
Matt.
But yeah, it was absolutely excellent to see the lighting in. Absolutely impressive to see the lighting in effect during Demon Queen Awakens, the last episode. You guys should absolutely check it out. We're gonna show off some of the Demon Queen Awakens here as we bring Calego in. I'm gonna get a little bit more lax in my pronunciation as time goes on, because I have been consuming some beverages. But let's take a moment and introduce Calego. And as we do, I'll just go over, as we bring Calego in, I'll just go over a few jot notes I took on Demon Queen Awakens. So we're going to be actually negotiating for permissions to bring this in as a module to release to the community. It's kind of up in the air still. We're definitely going to release it. It's just some questions around how best to do so. For those who were wondering, this was the question most asked during all 3 episodes of Demon Queen Awakens. Only 2 modules were used for that entire adventure. Small Time and Dice So Nice. Everything else was core Foundry. Some macro usage, no modules, just those 2. So we're joined now by Calego, the first among equals from the League of Extraordinary Foundry Virtual Tabletop Developers.
And nice, excellent, very, very good. We don't have to drink.
Yes, I'm going to do it anyway.
Even when we get it right, we get it wrong.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, about your credentials? What is your day job? What leads you to this weird mess of a community that we have?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how I ended up where I am. I was on Roll20 and I was using Beyond 20, and then Beyond 20 started advertising The Forge because Kakaroto was behind both of them, and I was like, The Forge, that sounds cool. Oh, it's not Roll20. Oh, it's Foundry. Oh, that looks cool. Holy shit, that's amazing. And then I ended up here. My credentials for a day job, I'm let's see. I have a very cool title. I'm a creative technologist. Ooh.
That's a new one.
I both code and I design. I have a degree in graphic design. Somewhere along the way, somebody put an IDE in my hands, and I fell in love with the code instead of the pixel pushing, and then I ended up where I am. I work in React land, TypeScript, professional front-end development for like a fintech startup that's not really a startup anymore. TLDR, I do a lot of not very fun stuff for work, so I was gravitated towards this very fun playground. It's a sandbox, right? It's all HTML, it's all CSS, it's all JavaScript. And once that like hit home, I realized this is really cool. You can do whatever you want here.
Now, we will have a chance for audience Q&A for Calego as well as us later, but Foundry Virtual Tabletop asks, is there someone else in your organization with the title Destructive Technologist?
There's not, no. Honestly, I don't even know what a creative technologist does. It was something that one of our designers said that I was.
Corporate title is awesome.
It sounds cool though, right? It gets your attention.
Yeah, like project coordinator.
Right.
Developer.
Yeah. See, I was just, front end engineer, but not creative technologist. Oh.
So you got a chance to play in Demon Queen with the man, the myth, and the legend himself, Nork. How was your experience?
All I got to say about Malik is that he was really, really good at being a meat shield if you could get him in front of you. That was the challenge with Malik. Yep.
You normally play 5e, right?
I do, yeah. I only play 5e. I'm mildly ashamed to say it. I have stolen things from other systems and done the thing that everyone hates 5e DMs for doing, which is, taking cool things from other places and then breaking their stupid 5th edition game to make it better. I'm sorry.
I don't think there's anything to apologize there.
I'm not sorry.
I'm guilty of doing the other thing. I take ideas from a variety of other games, including D&D, and have spent the last very long time working to try and make my own system that is its own thing, that is in a way, just bashed together variety of systems. So I'm looking forward to seeing, the community's reaction when they actually get to see it. We're a ways out from that yet. So
from what I've seen,
like?
It looks excellent.
So I too have had the experience of being GM'd by Andrew. The boss is freaking out because there's white grid lines on the map from when I was recently rewalling behind the scenes, and I didn't change it back yet. So yeah, I too have had the experience of being GM'd by Andrew. Any opinion you'd like to share, or feedback, or what was the experience like for you?
He's watching this, isn't he?
Oh, he totally is.
That's unfortunate. I mean, it's
destroy him.
Honestly, it was pretty excellent. I felt like Atro and I DM very similarly, and that was really a breath of fresh air. Not to put down any of my players who may be DMing for me that may be watching, but it's always nice to sort of be on the same page as your DM, and it was a great mix. It was really nice.
Did you have a favorite boss?
The monolith guy was he made me feel feelings more than the other bosses did. The first guy with just the magical darkness was like, oh my god, this is the most annoying thing to fight in ever. But when there was a large Stygian monolith thundering towards you at a constant pace, that made me feel feelings.
I'm super glad to hear someone else say that Andrew kind of GMs the way they do. I have not had great experience with D20 as a system. So much so that I've recently declared I'll never play other than my current game. I will never play in another D20 game. But it's perhaps very telling that I'm remaining in this 5e game that Andrew's running for Frostmaiden because I want to see what happens in the end. It's about the story for me, not the system. So I can grit my teeth and get through the system in order to experience the end of the story.
I'm so sorry that you don't enjoy the world's greatest role-playing game.
Is it though? Is it really?
It says so on the box, man.
I don't make
the rules.
Look, I've had a lot of marketing people tell me a lot of things about their products. But when you're not playing 5e or GMing 5e, you also make modules and work on systems. And in fact, you work on 5e. How's that?
I have thrown some code at 5e. It's sprawling. It's large. It's larger than you think it is. There's a lot of people who say that they compare 5th edition to like Pathfinder 2nd edition, for instance, inside Foundry. It's not really a very fair comparison. In doing so, you think you do it a disservice because you think of all the things that it doesn't do for you, but at the same time you perhaps gloss over all the things that it does do, and it does do a lot of things. And I only really started to realize that whenever I started to contribute. It's open source, right? So if you want to make it better, go do so. I learned a lot more about Foundry in the first month or so of messing around, just closing little bugs in the 5th edition system than I had making my own modules.
So
also,
I'll ask.
Just want to put that out there. If you multi-class, you're hurting me physically.
So I'll ask the question I'm sure many of the community developers are wondering. what's it like to have Andrew review your merge requests?
Terrifying. No.
It was terrifying at first. Yes, it was harrowing. You sort of psych yourself up a lot more than you should with Atro, because he's Atro. He's Atropos. You know, he's Atropos. But once you're actually doing things, you realize he's just another guy with a keyboard and hopes and dreams and aspirations and experiences and opinions, just like you are. And he gets a lot less scary whenever you realize that he's human.
Yeah, that was an adjustment period for me as well when I first started working for the company. Learning, you know,
human.
The package jam, the hackathon that the league did was, I don't know, I think I saw Atro smile for the first time, and that was like a moment where, holy shit, he's not a machine, he's actually a computer, and he actually enjoys things. And that was it was a real eye opener for me, just seeing him goof around and mess with this random generator for a dungeon that was auto walling, and it was coming out terrible, but it was cool, it was fun.
Excuse me.
Listen, you know as well as I do that thing was a garbage fire.
But it was our garbage fire, and we had fun making it.
That's really all that mattered.
Yeah, I think that because we have such a large community and because it's not the norm, there's kind of this mystique that arises around, you know, Andrew as lead dev, where people aren't really sure how to deal with a developer who is just there that you can reach out and poke and go, I can't get this working, can you help me? And he will.
Yeah.
So it's really, I think he works really hard to try and avoid that idea of being unapproachable.
Yeah, it's the 08 dev support channel was fantastic as a resource. I didn't have a lot of things that broke in there, so I wasn't posting very often, but I was reading through it and trying to catch up and throw stuff at the wiki that I could, and it was amazing.
So you mentioned the package jam last year. We're now in package jam 2.0, where you guys are taking in submissions on an almost daily basis.
Not quite daily. I'd say there's been a couple a week. We only have I shouldn't say only. That's not fair. We have 27 entries from 15 entrants.
Any interesting one? I mean, obviously they're all interesting, but any that you want to share offhand?
There's some really interesting ones. There's a sprinkling of systems, which is always fun to see. A couple of systems that I'd never heard of. Bounty Hunter, Heart, and Band of Blades. There's like this sort of split down the middle of modules, whether it's heavy modules that come in like a wrecking ball and change a lot, or lightweight modules that do one little bitty thing, but you're like, oh shit, that's actually really cool. The heavy modules, one that's making waves lately is layers, which allows some really cool stuff you can do with layers if you can get around the mental model of how to actually do it.
Sorry, is that the levels?
Yeah.
Levels?
Yep.
Module with where it's like multi-floors, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So you assign like tiles and walls. Well, it works with wall height, so it doesn't actually control the walls, but it does do lighting and stuff. And it even messes with vision in such a way that it calculates what's visible based on the wall heights and the token height. It's crazy.
Oh god, I'm terrified whenever I hear a module messes with vision.
Oh yeah,
Just
like I said, this one is
amount of bug reports we're gonna see.
It is heavy. Speaking of messes with vision, get ready to take a drink because we've got. I apologize to everyone of German descent or who currently can speak German. Lichtgeschwindigkeit.
Lighting kit.
Fancy, as I call it, fancy lighting algorithm.
That's the one that swaps out the lighting engine to use like WebAssembly instead of
It does,
Pixel,
yes.
right?
So, this is one of those things. Yes, thank you, Wasp. Gesundheit. This is one of those things that I love the League for, because you just sort of sit around and these really, really smart people will come through and you hope that it wears off a little bit on you. Someone took the time to compile WebAssembly code into something that Foundry can use and improved the performance of the lighting engine dramatically in the process. So
Boy, they're going to be really unhappy when V9 prototype
sure.
1 drops and changes the entire lighting system.
For sure, but we don't kid ourselves. We do things because we can, not because we should.
Yeah, that one's been an interesting one to watch as he slowly started with 07X and then he's made it work in 08X and he added on different features and now it works with this, now it works with that. He's certainly one that I think will one of those developers will keep in our repository of people to be like, hey, we're looking at line of sight again. Can you provide some input? We're working on shaders, secret fire. Do you mind adding giving some input?
And that's honestly so cool to hear the names from the League show, whenever Atro is talking about things that he's done. Oh, Secret Fire has been helping with stuff. That's, I don't know. I'm not used to a company interacting with a community like that. I'm not used to it at all.
And now you're on a stream with one.
Yeah.
I think part of the benefit of keeping the team kind of smallish and keeping kind of close connections with the community developers is when we're doing something, it's impossible for any one person to know every inch of the Foundry code, other than perhaps Andrew.
I was gonna say he's doing a good job fooling all of the rest of us, if that's true.
I've seen him reach into his brain and pull out the exact line that something needs to be changed on without actually opening the code. So I mean, there's that. But for our group, being able to reach out and grab a community developer who has been working specifically with canvas operations, with overhead tiles, for example, with lighting or compendium databases or any tiny niche part of the software, being able to reach out and grab someone and go, hey, so we're working on this, you deal with this a lot, is there anything that we should change while we're already in here? And it just provides such a very quick, clean way of making that 5-item list of improvements that maybe no one ever thought to write down, but can just change how a developer interacts with the software easier.
I definitely want to talk, about how we work with you at the League and in the League, which used to be where the seat I was in. But before we do that, you are a developer yourself. You make modules like GM Screen, which is probably the most useful one I have installed. You make modules like Confetti, which is definitely the most used one I have.
You've redeemed yourself. Carry on.
Why don't you tell us a bit about your modules real quick? Plug yourself.
Yeah. These are all free open source things. I haven't bothered getting around to monetizing any of them, so you can go install them right now. GM Screen is probably my magnum opus. I figured out that I can hijack any application in Foundry and make it not float in a window, but instead sit in a cell. Couple that with CSS grids, it was a match made in heaven. It was really cool. Another one that I'm quite proud of is the actions list for 5e. It'll inject a list similar to the D&D Beyond actions list on your character sheet into your character sheet. It works better if another character sheet module implements it. I happen to have 2 of those, just saying. Tidy also does. Developer mode is another one that was good. It's useful for developers. It lets you use a UI to control the debug hooks. Lets you register your own debug hook, so you stop shipping modules with console logs everywhere, like I definitely never did.
See, my secret to fixing that problem is just don't release.
That's fair. But when you do get around to releasing, and you do that release of shame, whenever you accidentally left console debug hooks on, developer mode is just waiting for you. It'll always be there.
You've both seen my code. You both know I have no shame.
It's never too late. It's never too late to have a little bit of shame. And then confetti. I made confetti for the hackathon. I thought it was a stupid idea. It uses a surprising amount of moving parts to do a stupid idea, and it was a great learning experience. And now, for some reason, I cannot let it die. I say for some reason. Really, the reason is my wife. She will not forgive me if I let it die, because we need it for our games.
I use it in my games. It's tied into Dice So Nice. If someone rolls a 20, they get big confetti. If someone rolls a 1, they get little confetti. It's one of my must-have modules.
Cody, we're not going to talk about the abomination that you run as a game and call it fine.
No, look. The game I ran was very early in OAX, and most modules weren't working yet, and now they work great again, all right?
We were unstable.
Just because we were unstable doesn't mean the modules were stable.
I have a confession to make.
Yeah.
I'm still on 0710.
That's okay.
We'll forgive
it's Grape
you
Juice's fault.
travesty.
I just got into isometric. I had set up all these really cool isometric maps, and then 08 dropped, and I was like, "Fuck! I can't go anywhere." He just released early access for Patreon supporters. 08 this weekend. It's a long weekend. I'm gonna see what the damage is. I'll get my act together. I swear.
I'm looking forward to seeing what Grape Juice does with the 08 API, given what he managed to accomplish with the 07 API.
Yes.
So you mentioned the first package jam, and that's actually how you got introduced to the League, right? I've heard this story before. Why don't you share it?
I gotta gush on the League a bit. So I do web development things full time, right? So I know a thing or two, but it was intimidating to get started because you whenever you're in a new code base, you never know where you're looking for what. And I just wanted somebody to like help me get my feet under me. And the mothership, as we lovingly refer to it, it just moves too fast, right? I didn't feel comfortable asking questions there. I saw a Reddit post, come make a package jam entry. We have this cool server. I joined. It was a really cool server. The people there were stupid helpful, and they got my feet under me. I released a couple of modules. One of them turned out to be a duplicate, but I helped the other guy roll in the changes that I had made into theirs, and it was good fun. The League is the only reason that I'm really here in Foundry Sphere. And the package jam is certainly the only reason that I learned about the League. So I got nothing but good to say about package jams.
For those who don't know, what is the League, and what do you view its role as these days?
The League of Extraordinary Foundry VTT Developers is I had to look. I had to cheat. The League is it's at its core, it's a forum. It's a place for a bunch of really curious, smart, perhaps less smart, perhaps people who just want to hang around and be spectators to talk about hacking the shit out of Foundry. We we have, how I used to describe it is we have more elbow room to spread out. In the mothership, there's like 2 channels for development, and that's 3. Oh, my bad. What's the third?
It's API.
Oh, that's fair. Okay. 3 channels for development. But like, what if you got a more specific question about Pixie or about hooks? It might get lost. So the League fixes that. The League has a lot of elbow room for a specific channel discussion. It's got a lot of people who hang out, and they specifically watch those individual channels. Like I know Secret Fire, for instance, keeps an eye on the Pixie channel. So we shuffled you to the right channel, and the odds are good that you get someone really freaking smart to answer your questions there. And if you stick around long enough, the pixie dust sort of wears off on you, and you feel smart yourself.
That you went from joining the place to, helping run the place, and now you're first among equals. I had been the original one. I had created the league entirely just to help organize what I was working with other developers on. Suddenly, it started just getting huge traction. And now we have 2.8 thousand members in the league.
Yeah, it's a big draw, right? So Foundry, one of the reasons that I was specifically pulled into Foundry was that its selling point is it's all HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it's all very well documented API. Come here and break it. And I was like, by all means, you don't have to tell me twice. And so having a community devoted to that has all this sort of tribal knowledge, as I say, is a big draw. And then secondary to that, there's the community that has grown around that tribal knowledge, knows things and has opinions about things, and sometimes we have pain points that we don't think are being addressed by any of the upcoming work, and so we'll talk about these things, and we'll create work groups and make proposals, sort of unionizing ourselves, basically. It's not like we expect anything to actually be accepted, but at least we can feel heard by doing so.
Yeah, and it's, from our perspective, of course, as a company, we want to make sure that we are listening to the overall development community, and not everyone is a member of the League, of course, but having a single point of contact where representatives from perhaps the largest segment of community developers can weigh in on an issue that we're considering gives us a lot easier an avenue to approach when we're considering something like the reversioning. When we move towards that, of course, I reached out to you via Discord with kind of this is something we're thinking about doing. Can you kind of just workshop this list of questions to your crew and see what the general opinion is? Take the temperature of the community on this. If we're going to do this, is there anything that's going to cause people to come torches and pitchforks at us? Or is there some insight that, the League would like to give? That kind of thing. And, I mean, likewise with cards, Nork kind of shepherded the proposal for card support, and we're now in communication with the League and with Nork regarding that. So our step 1 prototyping of what we think card support might include is largely informed by the work of the League.
Do you want to talk us through what it looks like to go from this, huge amount of public, opinion, and start sifting through that and turn it into feedback and initiatives? And, some of those turn into, we're going to propose this to Foundry. Some of it turns into, we're going to work together among developers and build this cool thing like developer mode, or, card support unofficial was originally something done.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have asked questions to developers before. It's pure chaos, pandemonium incarnate. As soon as you guys at the developer roles in the league, you open Pandora's box. Our processes are mostly there to try and wrestle that chaos into an orderly shape. Usually it starts with a pain point, something that is complained about enough for the league leadership to start thinking about solutions. Like, oh, hold on, we could, what if we did that to do this? And at that point, we'll open a work group, pull in anyone that we know is going to be interested in the work group. Usually, if we remember to, we'll post these work groups publicly, and anyone who is interested can holler at us to join in. At that point, chaos breaks out, right? So the developers do what they do best. They come up with 18 increasingly outlandish solutions to this problem. And then that brainstorming calms down at some point, and someone, usually whoever's most motivated, probably me, starts writing something down that's the best of all of the things that they've seen. Circles that draft around, get more feedback. It's like a layered process as opposed to a everyone shout all at once. And I think those layers sort of temper and trim back on the more outlandish ideas, because somewhere towards like the 2/3 point, we start thinking, what's actually practical to do? Given our collective knowledge of the Foundry code base, is this a huge change, or is this like actually reasonable? And then that tempers our expectations. We are very clear to we make no demands. We're in no position to do any of that. We're just here to suggest and complain loudly. And if we all complain in the same direction, we feel more heard. Not gonna lie, like some of our proposals have been shot down. That's totally fine. That's why we're here. Some of our proposals have been implemented, and that's really freaking cool.
Yeah, I think async dice rolls came from you guys, right?
Async dice rolls was definitely something that we helped actually put to words. It was something that that's another thing, right? A lot of people say they want something, but they don't like actually hash out what that something is. This layering process of gathering the feedback and writing it down forces ADHD developers to actually focus for a hot second. And hopefully it's at least useful to Foundry Gaming to know the thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. Although my very first work after I joined Foundry was to go work on one of the initiatives I helped, turn into an initiative. I'm like, wow, who are these people making these requests? Oh, me. I made this request.
Oh, this was me, yep.
Speaking of requests, it occurs to me that we've been kind of monopolizing your time and haven't actually taken any community questions. So for those of you in Twitch chat, if you have any questions for Calego, please ask. Now's the time. In the meantime, we'll get one more question in from us, and then we'll start cycling questions from Twitch chat. So, I don't have a question. Cody, what do you got?
Well, putting that last thing we talked about to words, like the card support proposal started with, I think, 10 days of heated debate among people in a work group. It then turned into like 5 pages of a proposal. It then went through a cutting phase and finally was like 2 pages presented to Foundry. I cannot stress how much nicer that makes our job. Are there other initiatives you guys currently have baking that you want to talk about?
Cards is the biggest thing as far as like proposals go. other initiatives that I can draw attention to. The TypeScript definition team has been doing a fantastic job catching up to the 08 changes. They are very close to releasing an initial release of the 08 type defs. If you know TypeScript and want to dive into that, holler. They need help. I can claim absolutely no credit for their job. They're amazing. I look up to them, and I really wish that I had the brain power to help them.
And for those who don't know what TypeScript is, what is it?
Oh, come on, man. You can't just ask a question like that to me. TypeScript, in short, is JavaScript that yells at you if you do something it doesn't expect.
TypeScript is a great way to complicate a simple coding process.
Yeah, it's also super nice for large teams at large companies. And people who come from that kind of want it. I come from a type-safe code base. Our backend team we write the contracts, those get converted to TypeScript, and if the backend team makes a change that the front-end team doesn't know about, it actually stops the build. They can't deploy that unless we actually change it. It's amazing. It's saved our asses so many times. So, like, people who come professionally from TypeScript want that layer, that safety net, and it's something that we as a community are facilitating.
I saw the workings of one that was for people writing API modules to get notified when for their consumers.
Yeah, so JDW of Dice So Nice is one of our fire jugglers. They approached us and said, "Hey, I have some breaking changes coming soon, and I don't feel like I have a good platform to distribute information about those breaking changes." So we did a powwow. We thought of an idea. We leveraged some Discord features of Carlbot and Yagbot that we have. We're hackers. We break things. So we broke things, and we made a channel that has roles you can subscribe to, and they'll get pinged anytime there's a breaking change that needs to be announced.
Very cool. I suppose, you mentioned Carlbot. That's a bot that the League has been using for a long time. It lets you do things like, the roles, opt-ins for pings, and the, ability to sign up for, let me know if someone says this word or phrase and, I didn't see it. The League suggested to, Foundry that we add that to our server, and we just rolled that out. So now module developers and system developers can go sign up and be like, let me know when someone mentions the confetti module. So even non-development stuff, we will tend, we like to listen to the community.
I will say that
bots.
Sorry, go ahead.
Leo, the League bot. Shout out to Zeal. Thank you, Corporat. Leo the League bot is a bot which Zeal made. You ask it for a package, and it'll do a fuzzy search with Foundry Hub's API and return a whole bunch of information about that package. Super nice. It's fantastic. Highly recommend. It also improved our reputation scoring, which is maybe the reason that I stayed in the League. So there's that.
I was actually responsible for rolling out Carlbot to the primary Foundry server, Discord server, the mothership, as you've been calling it.
Mothership.
And I've been somewhat amused to watch it struggle in performance with the sheer volume of messages that rolls through a 36,000 person server on a daily basis. Thanks, Pathfinder 2 community.
Hey, I never said the League has good ideas.
We just have ideas, right?
we have ideas.
Corporat, one of the ringmasters of the League. In fact, the most recent one, he helps run the subreddit as well, is asking about Bug Reporter. He wants you to talk about it.
Bug Reporter, one of our brainchildren at the League was, what if you could report bugs to modules from inside Foundry without a GitHub or GitLab account? There's a line in the manifest that's bugs. So let's just, we don't like the word just, but let's just use that. And bing bang boom, we ended up jumping through some hoops and we made it happen. You can download Bug Reporter, and any module that has opted in will let you simply submit a bug report straight from there. That evolved into, well, what if we made those reports actually more useful than a bug report might be to a developer? So we include the relevant version information, the relevant core version, the relevant bug version, the module version, any dependencies that are there from the module itself, the settings from the module itself, with a couple of blacklisted ones. And, getting one of those as a bug report is dramatically more useful to a module developer than this no work, please help.
So, on that subject, the subject of bugs and reports and communicating with developers of modules, it was something that kind of slipped off my radar and I'd forgotten about, but you actually dropped a really great article that was an open letter to the Foundry community on Foundry Hub not long ago. Going into version 8, we were getting ready to release. You knew it, everyone knew it. And with the 07 process, we kind of had a situation where a lot of the community can get a little bit entitled and forget that, developers are people just like them, and modules take time to update. So you dropped this article on Foundry Hub and shared it on the subreddit, and I think it was received very well, and I think it bears some credit for why we didn't have devs getting pestered by users of their modules in a rude and abusive way. So is there something that you'd like to talk about related to this, the process of how best to communicate with developers for modules?
There's a very real topic that the League has talked about very briefly here and there. We talk about more in the back channels, and that's burnout. Burnout is super real. It's no joke. It's awful. The more you push for something that you don't want, you feel the burnout coming. And it sucks, because it's this self-defeating cycle of, I feel like I should want to do this, but I don't want to do this. Does that make me a terrible person? I know there's people who want this, but I don't want this. And it's real. And the only way you can get out of it is to stop and to breathe and to say, this is not urgent. This is okay to be broken. And breathe. No one is going to die because your module is not up to date. It's okay that your system is behind a little bit. Take care of yourself first. Your mental health is your own business. No one is going to do it for you. In fact, they will do the opposite. And that is what prompted me to write this. I remembered the 07 debacle a little bit, and I mean, in the brief time that I've been in the League, I've seen some prominent members of this community burn out. Like, it sucks. And so I've harped a lot about, don't do it, take care of yourself. If you're not comfortable, if you're not in a place where you can do this, don't. We, the League, have this initiative around helping abandoned modules find a new home. If you're burning out and you know it, there's no shame in that. And if you want your module to continue onwards and it's got an open source license, like, we'll help. Yeah.
Just to stress how okay that is, one of my modules, custom CSS, I knew I wasn't interested in working on anymore, but people wanted stuff out of it. So I found, it was one of the first things I worked with Zeal on. He took over the module. He had some cool ideas for where to bring it. And it's honestly really liberating to see, like, it grew up, under someone else's care, and like people use it even more now that it's actually being cared for, instead of just sitting there in my back burner of, oh, I really should like look at my issues on that and such.
Right.
Yeah, I've got at least one module that I've created that is in a similar state of I should get to it, I don't have time. That I just have to, you have to take a moment and measure, is it more important for me to fix these issues that people are having, or is it more important for me to focus on any number of other things that could be more pressing right now?
Yeah.
And that's sometimes a hard calculation to make. So having a community that is capable of picking up your work and running with it when you're not able to carry it yourself, probably the most useful thing ever.
Yeah. And I have learned a lot about myself and about open source stuff from the League in the brief time that I have been the crown holder. There's a lot of life that gets in the way of doing your fun stuff. And that's okay. You gotta do life sometimes. And sometimes it's more important than random person on the internet's request for your module. That it's okay.
To kind of close out, I just want to say, for those of you who are watching right now, the League of Extraordinary Foundry Virtual Tabletop Developers are an excellent resource. They're an unofficial union, kind of, that communicates with the Foundry team directly in order to help provide insight into issues the community is facing that might be slipping by our radar. If you are a developer or interested in learning to develop modules and content for Foundry VTT, they're an excellent resource. Take advantage of them. Communicate with them. Find their Discord. Be part of the community. We're going to take a few questions kind of at the end here. Thank you for joining us, Calego. This has been awesome, an awesome conversation. And you've given some great insight on what it is the League does that I think a lot of people will benefit from. Is there anything you'd like to share or say as kind of a last closing out?
The wiki also needs you. If you know things and you like to write, hit us up. We love writing down this tribal knowledge that we all share. So yeah, even if you're not a developer, if you just want to sort of come and watch and hope it rubs off on you, we'd love to have you.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us, Calego. We're going to transition now to just a general conversation with Cody and I, and we'll take some community questions as we discuss a few other things that have happened over the last 30 days of general Foundry news. So, Cody, there's we got some premium content to talk about, but is there anything you'd like to anything that jumped out to you in the last month or so that's a news topic we wanna share?
First of all, I feel like this last month is when it really went from like most of my modules didn't work in 08 to most of them did. Just suddenly, like 1 week, I went to go hit, update, and suddenly everything was there again. And boy, have I missed some of these things. You don't realize how many things you have until you lose them, right? But there's some really interesting ones. We talked about the lighting rework with WebAssembly. We talked a little bit about Ouija board, but that's actually built on a cool library called Sequencer. And Sequencer is something somewhat again built in the League, and it's a library that lets people define, do this on this token, and then wait 500 seconds, and then fire the firebolt thing, and then run this macro. And it's really cool. Matt, if you've loaded up the board, if we could show that off. So yeah, someone took this and they built a working Ouija board where you can, the GM could have ghosts or, spirits and such talk to the players via it, which I just absolutely incredible of what, people do. I mean, we mentioned the Minesweeper. There's this. I don't play 5e, but I was really impressed by someone, Optional Rules D&D 5e. They used the Foundry API to see if tokens were flanking a creature and automatically give the flanking bonus. I'm constantly amazed at what people are produce month over month, and I think it's super cool. I'm a nerd. How about you?
I'm consistently impressed with just the sheer volume of people who encounter one thing that they'd like to include for like an upcoming game for a session 2 or 3 times from now, and then go and write a module to implement that thing. It's a little wild to think that someone has that kind of turnaround time on producing that stuff, but
guilty as charged. I wrote NPC chatter for like 1 map ever. And I've used it maybe like 2 or 3 more times after that, but like it's become really popular. A lot of people like it. It's like, I did that for me.
So we got a question a little bit ago that was something about what's the plan for implementing the Z index for, like, I guess they're referring to like implementing levels kind of thing, like floors on a map. We have some internal discussions about that, but it's still a ways away, so there's not a whole lot we can share. It's definitely something that we're thinking about, and it's something that has been thought about for a while, but it's not something that is as easy as just put stairs in. And often we get, 30 or 40 different suggestions on what the best implementation might be. So deciding amongst them is always a question. Shark That Walks Like a Man asks, what are our favorite features of V9 so far? I don't know, man. The way ambient lighting is going to blend in 09 is... it makes me uncomfortable how good it is. How about you, Cody?
Man, we haven't started it, so it's definitely not a fair and valid answer, but I am excited about bringing in a core key binding library. We've talked about developers a lot this episode, and we have 2 competing keyboard modules put out. Happened accidentally. They both had fundamentally different ways of doing it. I would love for us to like work with them and make one way of doing it so everyone can use that. I also think it'll help a lot with card support once we add that.
Yeah, I'm bittersweet over card support. On the one hand, it's going to be great because for those who are watching out there, this may or may not come as a surprise, but the game system that I've been working on doesn't use dice. It's an entirely card-based game. So my previous implementations, I just built card support in myself, and it was hacky and it was not great, but it was functional. And now there's official card support coming right at the time when I'm refactoring for 08. So I'm in the awkward position of, do I decide to wait and let the official support come in and then build on that, or do I implement my hacky solution and then have to refactor in 2 months' time? So it's bittersweet, the implementation of card support that is inbound for me. In other news, just to throw out there, we've got a small pile of both premium and free content that came out in the last... Ooh, I think I may be experiencing a satellite interruption. Am I back?
You're good.
I think I'm back. Right, sorry about that. Small satellite interruption. For those unaware, I'm using the awesome Starlink, which, believe it or not, provides me internet support better than anything I've been able to achieve here. Right, so I was attempting to introduce all the premium content and free content that has been released for the last month. Just real quick off the top, Deadlands released a Weird West map pack, which comes pre-walled and lit. All of these do, as I'm sure you're well familiar. Basically, you purchase these maps, they're all ready to go, and you can implement them through the premium content filter in the modules installer. We also got Evil Hat Productions. For those unaware, they're the the publisher behind Fate, and Fate's the important one in this section, I think, which is they released premium content for Fate, Secrets of Cats, and Blood on the Trail, which is two kind of, as far as I'm aware, adventure modules that introduce a bunch of stuff and content for Fate itself. Then we also got content from our own community developer, Rugalt, with Dragonshorn Encounters Volume 2, which is, I believe, a bunch of pre-canned, ready-to-go encounters with maps and, NPCs that you can throw at your players if you want to abuse them. And in terms of free content, we also saw releases from Angela's Maps, who I had the pleasure of working with to introduce. Angela's Maps are just these fantastic, kind of painterly pseudo hand-drawn. I don't know if she hand-draws them. Maybe she does. She probably says on her Patreon. But just really kind of down-to-earth, homey art style. And she does these great animations that she uses with them. Just really, really pleasant overall. I think more than half the maps she released were, in fact, animated. We moved into, I think Matt worked on this one, Crosshead, an adventure, Cindy, and the Vault of Frozen Memories, which is, I think, a one-shot for 5e. These are, of course, available for free through the Foundry Virtual Tabletop Package Manager, so you can just install them. And I'm being told that the Crosshead pack, the Vault of Frozen Memories, is actually kind of a parody of the kind of adventure you might expect if it were coming from a certain mouse-related animation company. We also saw a release from Graham Plowman, who I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mysterious and Haunting Music Pack. If you tuned in during the last dev stream, it was used there. Really kind of great horror ambiance and just background sound. Really, really good for that kind of game. I kind of wish I was still running my horror game right now for using that. And last but not least, we saw a bunch of content from Kibble's Tasty in the form of Kibble's Generic Elemental Spells, which is a package specifically for, I think, 5e that brings in a bunch of spells and other content for use during your 5e campaign. So again, this is all free stuff that you can just get through our module installer, and it just, having purchased Foundry Virtual Tabletop, you get access to it, excluding, of course, the premium content that you would have to pay more for. But they're all priced reasonably. Make use of what you will.
If you guys have questions, go ahead and drop them in Twitch chat. While we're talking about content, I know there's at least one Kickstarter we have going on. The people behind Deadlands, Sigil, have put out a Superheroes 5e Kickstarter. They have blown past their initial goal. They're, I think, trying to figure out what to make for more stretch goals because they just can't do enough of them. It's a way to just be a superhero while playing 5e, and one of their tiers is Foundry support, so that's really exciting. Not a Foundry Kickstarter, but I recently backed one called Heroes of Arcadia, where you get cups with little bars on them that represent your health, and every time you take damage, you take a drink of your whatever you're drinking, usually booze, and then if you have a health potion, you pour back in. I don't think you can get the same experience in Foundry though.
No, I think that would definitely be difficult to implement an API for. Maybe some kind of, I don't know, Arduino powered drink dispenser tie-in. We need to get Calego back in here just so I can just tell the League to get on that. Go and make us an Arduino powered drink dispenser. We need it. I'm sure Greg
I very seriously was looking at ambient smells, like where I would have little Arduino fans blow candles as a joke for the package jam, but turns out I'm a busy person with high priorities in that.
Yeah, I know. What's this whole thing about having a job and having to, balance that work-life thing? I didn't agree to that.
All I know is my modules have not been doing well anymore, but that's okay. Developers are people too.
You're hardly ever responding when I send you a message, panicked at 9 o'clock in the evening. I can't figure out this random piece of code. Please help me. Please help me. Please help me. Just over and over. And you're like, I'm in bed. Go away.
And time zones don't help.
No, they sure don't. Anyway, we haven't gotten any further questions, and I think it's probably a good place to start winding down. Thank you, everyone, for coming out for another episode of Hammering It Out. And we'll see you next month when we'll be joined by some other mystery guest. Oh, we seem to have someone shouting question in chat. Do you think there's something pressing that they might be asking? Oh, it's 5e related. I don't know.
Oh, look at the time. Oh, we already hit end stream, I thought.
For 5e, more of an exploratory thing, because I recall it's been postponed. If you have any gossip to share about race, subclass, item types, no idea. No idea. It's legitimately neither my nor Cody's field to be able to provide you an answer on that.
Calego, nod in the background if you have the answer.
He's
doesn't
not
look like it.
He's not responding. So let's go ahead and say that this is one you'll have to ask somewhere else. The D&D 5e channel in the Foundry Discord. That's where I'd ask. Where's the push to talk button in Foundry? You can set it anywhere. you can set it to any key from the settings menu if you have configured both HTTPS through SSL certificates, and you go in and change the audio video menu. It's in the configure settings section. All right, thank you for coming, everyone. We'll see you next month. Our guest will be, I don't know, because we haven't asked yet. See you guys in 30 days. Cody may see you sooner, depending on the dev streams.
Hopefully next one we'll get Kim on, too, and you can see his face.
Indeed. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Have a good one,
see you
everyone.
next month.